Welcome to Tips for Human Resilience. While our regular podcast covers topics related to cyber and human resilience, our Tips for Human Resilience is focused on helping leaders in the workforce help their organizations. This is Art from Airiam, and today's episode is going to be focused on IR for financial services. Financial services is a sector that I've had to do a lot of incident response for in the last 5 years. This has mainly been ransomware. They could be financial advisory firms, brokerages, insurance companies, etc. But they all have the same target on their back from the attacker. They deal with a lot of money, and they deal with customer data, and this is all valuable to your operation and to the attacker. So ransoms tend to be higher because they know that you have cash to pay. The attacks often are more severe because they're operationally impactful to you. During recovery, systems are down. If you are a highly transactional firm, then you are losing a lot of data during that time. And then if there's private data that is being held on your servers, whether it's social security numbers, account numbers, etc., that all is breached and used by the attacker to ransom you. And so I've seen ransoms anywhere from a couple $100,000 to 50 million for these kind of events. And it really depends on the quality of the data, the kind of the data, the size of your firm, the revenue of your firm, and really how impactful the attacker thinks their attack has been. So if the attacker has completely devastated your environment, all systems down, fully encrypted, and that's what we usually see. Usually when ransomware happens, they are so effective that all servers are encrypted, all workstations are encrypted. So that means really rebuilding your environment from scratch, which can take weeks, months. It can take a long time. So depending on your environment, depending on the size, all your backups are almost always gone because the attacker targets them. So in the end, your choice is either to rebuild or pay the ransom. And so a lot of firms, in order to get back up sooner, pay the ransom. Something to be aware of is paying the ransom doesn't mean you don't have to do a forensic investigation. You still need an incident response team. You still need to be able to kick the attacker out because they're still in your environment. And a lot of machines, even after decrypting them with the decryptor key, are not operationally sound. They have problems. They're corrupted now after being encrypted and decrypted, so they need to be rebuilt. Not only that, but the decryption process itself is really resource intensive, so is not very quick. So I've spent weeks decrypting environments before. And I know you're wondering, how did the attacker encrypt the environment in one day? But decryption takes a week. A lot of that is how the algorithm is written, how their program is written. A lot of that is just the efficiency of the environment as well. So while machines are encrypting, a lot of people didn't notice that they were encrypting most likely until it was widespread devastation when they came in on Monday morning. Now, when we're trying to decrypt, usually when we're decrypting several machines at once, that causes your entire environment to grind to a halt, especially if you have, a data center environment with like VMware, stuff like that. So there's a lot of stuff to consider, and paying the ransom, although that may be your most operationally sound option, is not always the fastest way up. So you may need to pay the ransom because you need the data, and there's no way to recover the data without it. You may be forced to. So just keep an open mind there, but just also be aware that sometimes paying the ransom doesn't mean you're going to be up right away. So what are some things that you should do to get ready? Well, one, create an incident response plan. And that is identifying an incident response firm like us, like Airiam. If that incident response firm has a retainer like our Air Rescue IR retainers, consider that as basically an extension to your cyber insurance. make sure you have cyber insurance. Document account number, all that information for cyber insurance. Keep your incident response plan on paper in the event that you can't access it with the computer. So you'll want to make sure that you are able to, get it even if all systems are down. So it needs to be in a notebook or on a piece of paper. Cyber legal. Engage cyber law firms, build a relationship, get some paperwork in place. Even if there's no retainer in place, get the agreements, the preliminary stuff done so that you can use cyber legal when you need to. I know even law firms will use other law firms. A lot of people try to go without cyber legal, and they are making a grave mistake. Cyber legal is going to guide you through how to do those communications, those PR releases, how to do notifications, legal notifications to your customers, etc. There's a lot of liability that you can open yourself up to by communicating poorly about an event. So cyber legal will help you kind of navigate that and help you make the best choices there. And they're also very familiar with the recovery process and with incident response. So they are really aware of what we're going through in this incident. So it's important to engage cyber legal when an event happens. So for your incident response team, consider your internal team and consider an external team like Airiam. That external team should have forensic capabilities, rebuild and recovery capabilities. Consider cyber legal, and then what stakeholders in your company need to be involved. So your CFO, especially if there's ransom decisions that need to be made, IT management or CIO, your CISO, CEO. All these people should be involved when an incident is happening. Things need to be moved quickly and need to be done with a certain amount of gravitas that requires senior executives to be involved. It's really hard to get an incident moving and to get progress when you're being barricaded at every step because you're having to go through chain of command. So the incident response team needs to be able to go around chain of command in an incident, and that needs to be understood. So regardless of who, the incident response team should have the ability to respond to the incident correctly without being barricaded at every wall. So there's some things to consider about doing your IR planning. In addition to just getting those contacts and starting down that, you'll want to think about disaster recovery and what your recovery paths are, what your key data is, and where that's stored, and how many copies of that data you have. How are you governing access to that data? Where are you backing that data up to? And do you have multiple ways of recovering that? Is everything protected by MFA? Is it locked down? Think about things like that. Do you have air-gapped, immutable ways to recover? In other words, if the attacker gets access to your network, can they delete your backups? In most cases, the answer to that is yes. So you want to make sure that you have solutions in place so that those backups can't be deleted. An incident response team like us will still need to be engaged in order to get the attacker out of the environment, in order to contain everything. But that recovery step is so much simpler if you have backups. If you don't have backups, we're really starting your company again from scratch, which is extremely painful. Anyway, in financial services, as well as any other sector, these are issues. Financial services has a big target on its back right now. Financial services, healthcare, construction even, and transportation. These are all sectors right now that are getting a lot of attention from attackers. But if a ransomware operator is looking for easy money, usually they'll go for financial services or legal, because they know that you have capacity to pay, and in the end, that's their goal. They're not trying to embarrass your company. They're not trying to do anything else other than get money out of your company by doing this attack. So consider a retainer. We have an incident response retainer that is called Air Rescue, and it can be used for tabletop exercises, IR planning, vulnerability management, penetration testing. You know, the IR team before a breach will help prepare your environment to make sure that you have you're working on a path towards security. When we come in and start working with you and run our first pen test, there may be a million things to fix, and we will work with you and try to figure out which of those things are most impactful and which of those things we can do using some retainer hours from the retainer to help move your security along. And then, you know, of course, the remainder of those retainer hours can be banked and used if there's an incident or if there's other security related tasks that need to be done in order to improve your security and reduce your risk. I think that, you know, investing in a retainer is something that confuses a lot of people because they're like, okay, why not just put an insurance claim in when there's, you know, a cyber event? You still want to do that. You will still want to have cyber insurance. What a retainer with an IR firm does is establishes that relationship ahead of time so that you're not scrambling in those first 3 days after an incident to get an IR team engaged. By having that retainer in place, we're already engaged. As soon as an incident happens, we're responding. So it's a lag time of about 72 hours between, you know, if you're just using the insurance route and then working with cyber legal and then trying to get an IR firm and then getting somebody involved and getting all that paperwork done. You know, the fastest way is to have that relationship ahead of time. So financial services is critical to put in that relationship so that you can have immediate response for all of your critical assets. Since financial services is so fast-paced, your data is changing all the time, and time is money. You can't afford to be down for a month. So have a 24/7 expert response team available, which will ensure minimal downtime for you and help safeguard that data. When you engage a team like ours, you're able to leverage the last 5 years of ransomware recovery experience in the financial sector, where we've done some unique things and fought some unique cybersecurity challenges for everything from enterprise Fortune 500 global 100 companies down to, you know, SMB. It really doesn't matter. The size doesn't matter. Really, everyone's a target now. And, you know, between regulatory requirements, SEC, FTC, et cetera, and then, you know, public scrutiny, contractual requirements, there's a lot of things to get involved, and there's a lot of opportunities for litigation. And so there's a lot of things to do carefully and meticulously and properly when an incident happens. You can't just, you know, brute force your way back up. You know, a lot of CEOs try to do that. It's almost out of pride. Oh, we can't be down. Well, you know, and I understand you're in a lot of pain right now. So plan appropriately before an incident happens. Get that incident response team, that cyber legal, that plan together. Get everything in place so that you can bounce back. Think of it as resilience. You need your company to be able to bounce back. Nowadays, a cyber attack is usually happening to a company about every 3 years. So, you know, it's pretty frequent and everybody's experiencing this. So it's not something to take lightly. Something that you get with us that you may not get with all IR teams is a recovery team. You know, we will rebuild your environment and get you back up and running. As I mentioned, those hours in that retainer can be used for other things like, you know, fixing the things that we identify in a pen test. If it's a large project, we'll probably just quote it as another project rather than use those hours. Really, it depends on how you want to bank your hours and how you want to use those hours towards proactive things. But we're here for you in a crisis situation as well as proactively. So it's all about building that relationship and building, you know, your incident response capability so that when an event does happen, it's less devastating to your organization. We at Airiam hope that you have enjoyed our podcast today. Please subscribe to this podcast on whatever platform you're listening to. New episodes typically come out every other Wednesday. For more information on Airiam, go to www.airiam.com. Thanks.